I don't think it's a coincidence that we look at older people and find them more susceptible to classic advertising. Of course, they're the ones buying those like AI puppies that look realistic, but then you get like a stuffed animal in the mail.
Anyway, look at these dogs. They look totally real, but they're robots.
And honestly, millennials aren't that different as far as falling for advertising. I think with just a little more skepticism, they are susceptible for falling for very much the same advertising as baby boomers. Maybe ones that appeal to more like ironic or like random kind of aesthetics.
Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me.
And the thing is that when we got TiVo, it kind of changed a lot of things. Because I think we thought we were pushing against advertising norms by skipping commercials, but I think it just taught advertisers to find another way to get to us. Because what I see with Gen Z in advertising is I see them putting it into everything they do. And I think when you put it in the things they do every day and you give it to the streamers to sell to them and you give these brand deals to these YouTubers to promote these products, advertising kind of becomes invisible almost. I mean, it's hard to market to Gen Z with traditional advertising. They typically see underneath the machine. So you kind of have to advertise to them where they're comfortable. Because honestly, when it comes to advertising, trust is probably the most important currency. You're usually more inclined to buy a product that you trust. And unfortunately, trust has to be earned. I think advertisers have found a lot of great ways of earning trust that isn't actually earned. Like, for example, I think they're starting to see that celebrities aren't the best spokespeople. You're starting to see a lot of commercials with celebrities that are just promoting garbage now. I think Gen Z looks at these celebrity spokespeople as like selling out almost, where if you showed the same commercial like 50 years ago, these people would be buying it. And the thing is Gen Alpha is only going to know advertising in the form of like online. I think traditional TV advertising is going to kind of fall off over the course of the next couple decades. Just a guess that it'll do that. Because that's the thing with advertising, is it always finds a way to make itself a part of your life. I think in a world where you can't trust anything anymore, things will have to move faster and earn your trust easier and quicker. And I think, unfortunately, fit into the culture somewhere. Like, our parents really didn't have too many opportunities besides watching the commercials. They could either watch a commercial or they could stare at a wall.
Harold, don't just shake your head. You've got to tell me what's wrong with the coffee.
Bad taste.
Now what am I going to do? Oh, Mary, hi.
Hello, Jane.
Listen, help me out, will you? Harold hates my coffee. What kind do you use?
Instant Folgers.
Instant Folgers?
Tastes good as fresh pert.
We had the option to watch the commercial.
Marshmallow power! Float!
Or skip past it with TiVo. Kids have the ability nowadays to pay for a subscription and not see ads. What is Gen Alpha going to have to do? No matter if we like it or not, we are going to be advertised to. It's just the how that's changing. Like, think of Robux. Think of how advertising is sold to Gen Alpha now. But I think before we can talk about Gen Z and kind of where advertising is going, we have to kind of talk about the older generations where advertising was. Because there were a lot less options. There were not a million things going on at all times. You had just the commercials that you've seen, the billboards that you drove past. Obviously, there was no algorithm. People bought television, radio ads, they bought advertisements in physical form. So you were very limited in your options and what you actually saw. But the things you saw, you tended to trust more. Because with enough television ads, people bought your product. Commercials weren't necessarily better, you just didn't have very many options. You couldn't scroll Bumble, you couldn't go on Grindr. The problem I think advertisers came across was, how do you earn trust from commercials? And I think that's where celebrities came in. Celebrity spokespeople were people that were already trusted by just the general public. Like, for example, Michael Jordan drinking Gatorade.
Sometimes I dream that he is me. You got to see that's how I dream to be.
I dream I move, I dream I groove, like Mike, if I could be like Mike.
Oh, if I could be like Mike.
You'd want to drink Gatorade because Michael Jordan drank Gatorade, like Mike. It's a whole movie about being Michael Jordan. Because during that time, I think advertising relied on repetition rather than quality, rather than actually earning trust. Advertising borrowed celebrities and they rented people. that's what they're doing now still, but I don't think it's as effective. It just assumed that you would see it as many times as you did and go, I recognize that. There's a lot less precision and subtlety.
Head on, apply directly to the forehead. Head on, apply directly to the forehead. Head on, apply directly to the forehead. Head on.
Success meant buying enough airtime that you were recognizable. And it sold you a dream. It sold you the American dream, the perfect family and house and picket fence and all that.
Leave it to Beaver.
That was what it was selling you because that was what the general public believed was the normal thing to do. The normal.
Scotty's new Magic Oval Box. Only Scotty's give you tissues that float up gently, one at a time, and come out in neat handfuls, too, because there's a Magic Oval inside.
The products told you openly, this will make your life better. This will make you lose weight. This will make you love your kids. This will make you not be a piece of shit. Advertising didn't need to blend into culture because it was culture. We had jingles that people would sing on the street.
Doesn't matter what comes, strength goes better in life.
We remember the Saturday morning cartoons. The commercials just burned in our brain of like the Sears guy going, I'll call tomorrow.
I cannot live another day without air conditioning.
Says tomorrow's gonna be hotter.
Hotter?
Like yesterday.
Yesterday? Yesterday you said you'd call Sears.
I'll call today.
You call now.
I'll call now.
Now's the time to save on Sears installed central air conditioning.
I'll call today. That guy, the Geico caveman at his own show. Like, commercials would become part of the regular daily zeitgeist. Commercials were just part of everyday life. That Was Up commercial from Budweiser was so popular. I don't know why. But I think this changed when millennials got their hands on the skip button. When you can skip commercials, there's not really an incentive to keep them on. I think this time period taught advertisers that attention had to be earned, and it wasn't necessarily guaranteed. Because I think we know almost two worlds, like a world with the internet and a world without the internet. And the world without the internet advertised very differently than the world with the internet.
I'm working for an hourly wage. I went to high school, didn't do great. Still I gotta make more cash. More education is what I'm looking at.
So millennials were like the first generation to engage with traditional advertising, but also engage with online advertising. Because I think when corporations saw the birth of social media and we were still downloading MP3 files off LimeWire, they realized that they could earn our attention in a completely different way. So we kind of watched the rules change in real time. I mean, people had the ability to skip commercials. YouTube started to exist. I mean, Netflix even normalized paying money to avoid ads. So advertising was almost pushing itself out into an area where trust had to be earned a little more specifically. The formula of buy enough airtime and people will buy your product just wasn't happening. And it wasn't happening anymore because people had an escape route from ads. The thing is with advertisements, though, is that they always evolve. They just fill whatever hole they need to get to you. And so advertisers had to adapt, and I think really fucking fast because they were losing money on counterfeit Viagra for sure. So instead of interrupting entertainment, it became part of it. And so they started putting it into everyday life. And because attention wasn't guaranteed, your attention had to be earned in some way. Brand deals became a thing. Sponsorships became a thing. Because the traditional advertising wasn't cutting it anymore. And this is when advertising became less about showing and more just existing wherever people are. Like, just be wherever people will be, and you'll sell your product. See, the thing is we weren't buying the same things as our parents. Our parents were buying a solution, and we were buying an identity. We were buying things to show the world what we were, to fit our aesthetic, to be something. These commercials were selling a lifestyle. Like, think of the guys with the Monster Energy tattoos. Like, they were so devoted to Monster as a brand, they got a tattoo of it on their face. And that's where those lifestyles come in. Like, think of Red Bull as a lifestyle. I'm getting a lot of energy drink examples. But, like, think of just any brand that has people buying it just to have the logo on. Those advertisers sold an identity, and people are buying it. I mean, the people that wait outside for the new iPhone. People wait outside for the new iPhone because they want brands that reflect who they are. They want brands that look like them, that feel like they want to feel. At some point, these companies gained an identity. I think this is where brands became a face. Like before that, they were just a faceless corporation. They were like Acme, whatever. But at some point, advertisers put a face on. Companies like Wendy's, for example, on Twitter, just saying weird, random stuff that people retweet because they think it's funny.
Your food is trash, Wendy's. No, your opinion is, though.
Like, that brand has an advertising specialist that, like, figures out what to post on Twitter. Like, they are optimizing these things for maximum profit. It's because social media quietly changed our relationship with advertising. It brought advertising into the places that we were instead of being a completely separate thing. And a lot of it is because advertisers weren't having to guess as much. They weren't just targeting men ages 18 to 35. They were targeting men ages 18 to 35 that searched counterfeit Viagra near me 26 times. Like, there are specific guidelines for these algorithms. Because in this world, you can market to people who buy hiking boots, who search for pregnancy tests, who search for hamburger recipes. You can use that info to market to them. And I think sometimes they're almost uncomfortably personal. Like, the internet knows what you want before you do. I don't want to give millennials a lot of credit, but I think that old advertising model was almost cracked. And so commercials no longer had a captive audience. And I think Gen Z watched the internet become corporatized over their childhood. So they didn't really know any different by the time they got of age to actually get online and like buy things. And since Gen Z was born into a world with a corporatized internet and a world that traditional advertising had previously thrived in, they were very good at spotting when they were being sold to. Most of the time, nobody likes realizing that they're being sold something. And I think Gen Z realized that.
New McDonald's crispy chicken sandwich. Come on down and get yourself a nice, big and hot and juicy crispy chicken sandwich. Packed with so much deliciousness and
And when someone realizes they're being advertised to, a lot of times traditional advertising becomes ineffective. So again, advertising has to mold itself. Because obviously Gen Z didn't stop buying things. They kept buying things. It just took on a new form. Companies are no longer just advertising within the content. They're becoming the content. You have these like whole brat TV channels of just basically commercials. I think Drew Gooden did a video on it. And it's just basically commercials for products.
I'm going to be crunching from this delicious bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Let's get into the questions.
So I think once marketers realized that Gen Z kind of knew what advertising looked like.
Taylin, that fit slays.
Kat, can I tell you a secret? We don't say slay. We say, you ate.
You ate. Cool. What else you got?
And could spot the thing from a mile away, they had to change tack. Because like once they got online, every app demanded a microtransaction or like a second of your attention. All these notifications and just engagement with the app. It suddenly became your attention that they were buying. Because I think once your brain is able to recognize an advertisement, it almost blocks it out. Like pop-up blockers, banner ads. You know that instinct to skip ad before you've even seen what the ad is? It's kind of that blindness to advertisement. This generation didn't want to be advertised to. And rightfully so. Nobody does. Nobody wants to be told to buy anything. And that's when authenticity becomes the product. The creator is no longer just selling the product anymore. The creator is the product. I think advertising discovered the value of using content creators and streamers and influencers to sell their product. I think a recommendation from someone you watch 3 hours a day is kind of close to a recommendation from a friend, because people trust creators they watch every day. They trust affiliate links, or they used to, because it felt less connected to the company. So I think people felt less connected to the product and felt less like they were being kind of scammed out of money. Subscription boxes, subscription services, using skincare routines every day, using the same thing every day. So I think when you sell to Gen Z using the people they feel kind of closest to, it can almost muddy those waters of advertisement and reality. Because while it's coming from your favorite YouTuber, an ad is still an advertisement. It's paid promotion. It's propaganda for that product. And I think it's sometimes hard now to tell the difference between the two.
Sponsor Olipop. how you can get your first sponsorship and paid sponsorship as a tech creator or...
And that is where this video's sponsor Rocket Money comes in.
Here's how you can apply for sponsorships right on TikTok.
So I just recently got partnered up with a product called
This is the difference between
and I think I would buy those tickets with SeatGeek.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this new Mococo drink? All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua, no artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
Because people want to buy authenticity. They want brands that feel like them. It's easier now more than ever to make a brand feel like a person using algorithms. The recommendation to buy a product feels a lot less gross when it comes from someone you trust. Like, I would trust Danny Gonzalez a lot more to tell me about a product than I would like a random person, I think. Because for 100 years, advertisers asked the same question. How do we get people to buy this? And it turns out, just put it in everything they have. And I think the more authentic a brand feels, the easier it is to sell. Advertising isn't trying to reach everyone anymore as much as it's trying to reach the right people. Television had the same commercials on all the time. TikTok doesn't. It has specific algorithms to fit into your advertising regimen. I mean, the algorithms have almost become the new television networks and kind of dictate what's shown to a person. Two people sitting next to each other can open the same app and see completely different advertisements. We've gone from celebrity endorsements to influencer endorsements to influencers waiting for their brand deals to come in. Because by the time Gen Z came along, that question wasn't the same anymore. The question was, how do we make people forget that they're watching a commercial? Put it on their refrigerators, put it on their toilets, put it in their cars, put in their YouTube videos. And when modern advertising attaches itself to things you love like podcasts, streamers, YouTubers, radio hosts, musicians, it infests your everyday life. And not only are you desensitized to it, it allows more advertisements to come in. So they evolve from buying attention to earning attention to borrowing trust. So Gen Z didn't reject traditional advertising as much as make it ineffective. Because television actors honestly always felt distant. And something about internet creators and people that can engage with their fans feels a lot more welcoming and like someone you would trust than a random celebrity like Shaq telling you which insurance to buy for your car. Because like it or not, live streamers and YouTubers are a lot more personable than celebrities. And that parasocial relationship is a benefit for corporations, especially ones that want to utilize those niches or specific creators to sell specific products. For most of history, advertising has been people trying to convince other people to buy things from people. And we're entering a world where algorithms start to decide what we buy and what we get shown. Because I think now people can almost recognize that formula. Like, you get into the beginning of a video. Oh, brand deal, skip ahead. Oh, skip ad. Like, we are so trained to get away from advertisements that I think it's only just morphing into being something that exists around us at all times. Because every channel suddenly has a meal box sponsor, a VPN sponsor, Rocket Money, Better Health. And honestly, it kind of felt like it happened overnight. As I was writing this, I watched this Venus Theory video, and I just thought about throwing mine out. I was like, oh my god, this guy already said everything I wanted to say. I think he explained something I wasn't able to put into words at the time. And I think it's because of his knowledge of the market.
Now, after being on the YouTube wagon myself for a couple years, I eventually started to learn that almost all sponsorships are just a complete waste of time and not worth doing, so I quit doing them altogether. Was this a financially sound decision? No.
These brand deals are a $100 billion market now. And where advertising used to be expensive, throwing a few $1,000s to creators to talk about your product for like 3 minutes on a YouTube video isn't really that much money and isn't really that hard, especially since it's kind of cheap to get content now. Like, just think, a commercial during the Super Bowl is a couple $1 million at least, right? But a good brand sponsorship with a YouTuber is almost better than that tenfold because you're putting a way less money into it and way less risk. I think there's way less risk to Rocket Money for somebody like a YouTuber to sponsor them because they don't have to pay that much for a lot of exposure. And I think we are so trained to just take the bag, and we end up promoting things that we don't even necessarily know to be good product. Like, for example, a gaming keyboard company could send out 500 free ones to YouTubers, pay 2,000 TikTokers to advertise their product online, and it's really not that much in terms of money, but it's a lot in terms of just exposure. Because when you're promoting like this, the risk is tiny, but the reach is massive. And I think that's a really fundamental change in advertising economics now. I think they've made obvious marketing so ineffective that they had to make it inobvious. And so I think they had to evolve to not be ignored anymore.
Now, class, Mr. Tiger will show us how Kellogg's Sugar Frosted Flake cereal starts out.
Is a flake real?
It's a cornfield. Kellogg's toast corn to golden flakes and adds a secret frosting.
Mr. Tiger, you're wonderful.
Oh, shucks.
I think millennials kind of learned to skip ahead, and so advertisers had to adjust to that.
I really am kind of shocked.
Is concerned because one of the triplets appears to be.
And I think when Gen Z learned to recognize it, they started putting it in everything.
What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over how to get paid as a small creator, getting brand deals. You potentially get paid.
And so I think Gen Alpha might not even know where it begins or ends. Because Gen Alpha isn't growing up with it as much as growing up inside of it. This is just a part of everyday life. Like your normal YouTube video brought to you by Rocket Money, your normal commercial of McDonald's, your normal TikTok shop, because there isn't a clear line of communication or advertisement. Like the marketplace and everything all exists within the same realm. I think it's also a little dangerous for Gen Alpha and money because I think it disconnects them from money as well. I think it's just odd that a whole generation is learning consumer behaviors through currency on a screen. Gen Alpha is growing up in a place where the creator, the game, and the concept are all part of the same thing. Buying V-Bucks, Robux, stuff like that. I think buying something for 800 Robux trains the generation that $10 is worth something different than what $10 is worth. It becomes a very dangerous game when you take away how real money is to a person. Disregard the gambling apps for adults for a second, but like, isn't all this Robux and V-Bucks and like these skins and stuff, isn't that all just kind of like gambling for kids? Because now brands create the environment they want people to see. Like, advertisements are now the experience. And the thing is companies can generate thousands of versions of the same advertisement. So it's not that hard to just throw it out into the ether and hope somebody picks it up. For example, like all those AI advertisements that sell those cheaply made purses. Like, they know who is buying those cheaply made purses. It's your grandma. And she's buying them because the advertisements are telling her that somebody is going out of business and they're dying because nobody's buying their purses. Like, they are becoming part of everyday life. If Gen Z changed advertising to disguise itself as content, then I think the problem these advertisers are going to come across is that they're almost double dipping too often. They're creating thousands of different versions of the same advertisements, the same slop, the same garbage. Then eventually this generation is going to recognize that they're being advertised to, and they're not going to want to buy your Fortnite battle passes anymore. But ultimately, trust is what moves brands. Trust becomes the product. And what is Gen Alpha trust? Algorithms, AI companions, virtual creators, recommended searches? It's because nobody really knows yet. There are so many advertisements that you just don't realize how often you're being advertised to anymore. And I think the big difference I'm kind of getting at is that previous generations knew where the line was between advertising and real life. And I think that's dangerous to a generation to show them a world where advertisements and real life aren't always necessarily separate. And I don't know, this generation is interesting because advertising is almost changing as they're growing up. And honestly, it's easy to blame advertisers for all of this, but we as people bought the products, we consumed the products, we engaged with the advertisement, we skipped the commercials, we installed the ad blockers, we recognized that we were being sold to and forced the marketers to come up with a new strategy. And when we ignored banner ads and skipped ads, advertising changed because our behavior changed. Every generation thinks they have advertising figured out. The problem is that advertising just changed shape first. It never disappeared. It just kind of became like an Akira type blob that like infests everything now. Every generation thinks they're smarter than the last generation, and ultimately every generation got sold something. Whether it was an American dream, a hopeful future, a tech-filled future, or a dystopian nightmare where Robux are currency and Fortnite is played in real life. It just takes another form and another form and another form and eventually becomes part of your universe. And it's just simply becoming harder to recognize. And if advertisements are getting harder to recognize now, what's it going to look like in 10 years? Because if history tells us anything, advertisements won't look anything like they do today. Thank you, and